Welcome to Louisville in 1860. Behind me stands the world's oldest ornamental water tower. Today, we're exploring its incredible history. Let's travel back in time.
So most people, when they visit Louisville, Kentucky, they want to visit the Kentucky Derby, the Exposition Center, or even Thunder over Louisville, which are all great, they're all fun. But when you come here, you really miss a lot of fun historical places that really are just really awesome. In my last video, we learned of the dancing on top of the world's largest bottle of booze water tower. And without this next historical piece of awesomeness, we wouldn't have bourbon or water. It all starts here at the world's oldest ornamental water tower right here in Louisville, Kentucky. But first, let's talk about our tap water. Louisville has won many awards for its amazing taste of tap water. And I've traveled enough of the country to know not all tap water can compete. And that's all thanks to this. Louisville's water runs naturally through limestone. That's what gives it a bit of a sweet taste. Limestone actually removes iron, but also adds its own magnesium and calcium. While it does give us a hard water, it's the price we pay to drink some of the best water in the country.
No amount of scrubbing was able to remove the stains from this coffee decanter, but a little CLR and water gets it crystal clean instantly. Watch how clear wipes away hard water film from tile. Makes shower doors shine crystal clear. CLR instantly removes unsightly rust stains from your bathtub, sink, and toilet bowl. And nothing cleans your coffee maker, steam iron, tea kettle, or pots and pans faster or better. Get CLR. It will work for you or your money back.
The Louisville Water Tower stands 180 feet tall and was built in 1860. In the early 1800s, taking a sip of water in Louisville could quite literally be a death sentence. Long before we had award-winning water, the city was plagued by two horrific microscopic killers, cholera and typhoid. It led to a massive epidemic in 1832, earning Louisville a terrifying nickname, the Graveyard of the West. And on October 16, 1860, the Louisville Water Company officially switched on its pumps for the very first time. Now, despite the dire need for clean drinking water, a lot of people were skeptical. They didn't know what to think. They didn't want to have water that was piped in from the river due to the diseases, the bacteria. So the Louisville Water Company opened up this water tower and pumping station behind here in 1860 with only about 500 customers. That was mostly, in that time, local distilleries and breweries. Let's go get a closer look at the river and I'll explain more of the mechanics of how this operated. So behind me is the Ohio River, and what Louisville Water Company did was they dug a big huge pipe into the river all the way down into like the mud, okay? And what happens when you're digging in like dirty muddy water, you're gonna get logs, debris, fish, you name it. So what they did was they engineered this big iron gate to go at the end of it to use as like a filter. So essentially an underwater colander to help strain all of that out. Once the river water gets sucked up through the pipe, it then goes to the pumping station, which was originally this beautiful building I'm sitting at the back side of. Let me show you. So this was the very first pumping station. It now holds the Waterworks Museum, which we are going to here in just a bit. I'm so excited because I've never been. But this is where the big engines would suck up the water and then they would just pump it as hard as they could. So it was getting pumped, it was getting slammed, right? And what happens is once they pump it, it shoots up into that big tower. Why, do you ask? Fun little fact, it's gravity. Now here is the interesting part. We are currently standing at the base of the world's largest ornamental water tower. And this isn't your typical storing water tower, but rather it houses a pipe. Now, once the steam engines are pumping the water, they're gonna pump it over into this pipe here. What happens over here is that when the water gets pumped up, it's pumped really fast. And as it gains altitude, that when it falls down, the gravity takes over and it loses its oomph, let's just call it. So that way, when it goes to the underground pipes, the pipes aren't bursting and broken constantly because of the force. So essentially it just slows it down so it doesn't break the underground pipes on the way to the reservoir. But the tower itself has a story all its own. Now, this structure was built in 1860. However, in 1890, a massive tornado came through, and surprisingly, the only damage it did was to this water tower, this standing pipe. At the time, it was made of wood panels. They since have changed the material and made it stronger and sturdier. But yeah, this was torn in half along with the iron steel pipe inside of it. Now, at the time, chief engineer with the Louisville Water Company, Charles Hermany, was in charge, and he got here the morning after the tornado and was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna fix this? Naturally freaking out, right? The pipe was broken, the structure was broken. Thankfully, he had already done the work. We started out with a small reservoir, and he just saw it and he's like, this ain't gonna cut it. We're gonna get something bigger. So in 1875, they made what we currently have now, the Crescent Hill Reservoir, which is made up of 2 water basins. And that's important because we'll get to that later. Keep that in your brain for right now. But Mr. Hermany was like, what are we gonna do? The reservoir only held about 5 to 6 days worth of water for the whole city. And that's everything. That's crops, drinking water, showering, firefighters, everything. So he was like, we have to figure this out. This is serious. Louisville, the city as a whole, was looking at famine, drought, no drinking water, and of course it's susceptible to any fires that may have started during that time.
Mr. Hermany, how can the tower be rebuilt before the city runs out of water entirely?
I have a plan, but it's gonna cut close.
But Mr. Charles Hermany, had a brilliant idea. So Charles Hermany ordered his crew to build a massive bolt, like an airtight iron cap that would essentially like fit on top, I guess. Now keep in mind, this thing had to be huge because the pipe inside this water tower is 4 feet wide. So it had to be massive. So essentially, the it created an airtight pocket, essentially. Now what happened is this airtight pocket actually acted as a gravitational filter as well. Instead of shooting all the way up, it got into this air pocket and just lost its fierceness, which essentially helped, again, to not have the underground pipes burst. So essentially they fixed the problem while waiting to get this bad boy rebuilt. The scary part of this is the whole building, construction, testing, all of that took so long that they got it up and working with just 24 hours to spare before Louisville would have that drought, famine disaster. Crazy. But he pulled it through the last second. I mean, good for him.
The model is like the pumps in this room, the 2 pumps. This is like the standpipe that is out in the tower, and this is like a reservoir where the water moved to, okay? So again, the standpipe and tower was necessary because otherwise the water was moving so forcefully that the pipes would bust. So we had to have the water go into here and then back down and then move on to the reservoir to keep that water moving smoothly and not too forcefully. So that's why we had the tower. By the strong power of the pumps from the Ohio, utilizing the pumps, that water is going up in the standpipe. It is open in the top, so sometimes it would flow out the top and onto the floor of the tower. and then it helped the water move more smoothly over to the reservoir.
This was actually used for coal, and the coal smoke would come out of here, out of the chimney. This was pump station number 2, and then they have a pump station number 3 right behind there as well. The Crescent Hill Reservoir was completed and opened in 1879. Right now, you cannot reach the reservoir as Louisville is pulling off a massive multi-year engineering project to completely drain these basins, scoop out tons of river sediment, and change the massive lining that holds 110 million gallons of water. It's the first time we've seen the bottom of the reservoir exposed like this in decades. Originally, the reservoirs were made of concrete and limestone, but they found themselves having to dig up with hand tools a lot of the time, and eventually there was a massive leak in the limestone in 1996. So the liners were installed between 1996 and early 2000s and have a life expectancy of 30 years. Being this happens once every 3 decades means this could very well be once in a lifetime experience for me, and that the next time this happens, Eli will be my age now and possibly showing his kids. Across the street from the reservoir is the filtration plant. River water gets forced into the reservoir via underground pipes, so it collects the sediment at the bottom of the reservoir, then flows underneath Frankfort Avenue to the filtration plant, where the water is drained through fine sand, anthracite, coal, and gravel. Once the water is clear, it goes through a final disinfection process before being stored in underground storage tanks called clear wells. One thing we learned on the tour is that it is a 2-day process from collection to the faucet. So unfortunately, we could not film in where the steam engines are, but I'll try to find some pictures and insert them here. We did learn that the Ohio River runs from Pennsylvania down our way through Illinois, yada yada yada. I think she said it's like 800 something miles long, like crazy. And the amount of water that flows through was also ridiculous. Now, the Louisville Water Company started out with 512 customers. The wind is crazy. Currently, they have over 1 million customers to date. And the interesting fact that I learned from the tour is that the amount of water it takes to help us 1 million, 1,000 plus people, whatever, plus firefighters and all the things that is interesting because my neighbors have a little bonfire going. But for everything, it was like a minuscule fraction, like a point something of a 1% collection of water that we use from the river. So I just found that to be phenomenal. But I am so glad that I got to capture this for our family time capsule, and I'm loving learning all this history stuff. I hope you guys are having fun learning it too, and I just think it's awesome, and our water is really good. So until next history hunt, cheers. Good soup.